we're going to pick up the main part of the webinar, Databricks Unity Catalog, and how autonomous data trust validation is going to be a key component for users of Databricks. Now, this is a very intriguing picture I saw in the National Geographic. And literally everyone in this webinar who's listening to this is in the boat as this person. What's the challenge? The data user, data producer, data user, all of you have the same question. Can I trust that there are no hidden issues in the analytics, in the machine learning, in the business intelligence, and the reports, either that I am producing or that I am consuming? Are there no hidden issues? The answer always is there are hidden issues. It's just that you can't see it. Now, Unity Catalog, as we just talked, has done a fantastic job in providing access control, auditing, lineage, data discovery capabilities across Databricks workspaces. And it is very powerful for users of Databricks, like the data engineers, analytics, the analytics people, BI, scientists, and ML engineers, to know exactly where the data is, to know where the data came from, to be able to audit when things go wrong, to be able to share the data. Now, the challenge that the information producers are facing is when you're a data engineer, you want to make sure that critical data issues are stopped before they hit the pipeline and the reports. When you're a data governance person, you want to publish only the data that is trustable. And when you're an analyst or an analytics person, you only want to use trusted data. You want to investigate the root cause for low trust. And data science and ML folks, they only want to use trusted data. They do not want to corrupt analytical and ML models, and these models have memory. The data that you feed them today, even very, very small amounts in ppm, parts per million levels, will linger for a month or two. Don't let that happen. Act beforehand, catch it. So the challenge for all these people in establishing trusted data is that the traditional approach is non-scalable. It is error-prone. Traditional approach is a 6-step process. One of the key steps is figuring out what rules have to be put in to validate the data. And then you have to code it, check the code, put it in UAT environment, and then production. And those 2 steps take a big chunk of the entire process. So what we have seen is the traditional approach to data quality takes anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks for a single table. Now, the challenge is it's non-standardized. Custom validation has to be created, laborious, heavy dependence on IT, and data steward dependence. And as a consequence, only 10% of the data is validated. And it takes them about 80% of a data scientist's time to validate just 10% of the data. They just don't have the time to validate the other 90% of the data. So the productivity of the data scientist is extremely low. You hired them to get greater insights in the data, but they end up spending most of their time in validating the data. Stop that. Let them do what they're best at, which is getting insights and helping you grow the business. Now, there has been a shift to a modern AI/ML-driven approach, which cuts the data quality validation time from 8 weeks to 6 hours per table. Now, fewer steps are involved. And instead of somebody figuring out what the essential rules are, have an AI/ML engine recommend the rules to you. And DataBuck is designed just to do that. Let the rules run. Activate the rules, deactivate the rules as required. And this reduces the entire time to get value out of your data, to set up the data validation from 4 to 8 weeks to just 6 hours. Now, this modern AI/ML-driven approach is an automated learning system, highly scalable, thousands of tables without adding any headcount to your team. It can integrate with a data catalog to make data more meaningful and more useful. This whole process, because it is automated, is very scalable, very short time to value. New data comes in, it gets validated, you can immediately get insights into it. There's low dependency on the IT. Yes, you can depend on them, but you want to minimize that. And it gives your data science and the analytics and the analysts very high productivity. they're doing the job that they're hired to do, getting insights into data. They're not wasting their time to figure out how to validate the data. Now, integrate the modern approach that I just talked about with Databricks Unity Catalog. Great at giving you all of this. What is missing is the ability to know whether the user can trust the data. Can I get data trust scores? And DataBuck, as a partner of Databricks, does exactly that. It can autonomously measure the data trust score for every table and every file registered within your Unity catalog. And it'll help all the users of data know ahead of time whether the data is usable, whether it can be used to train the model, or it can be used as an input to get predictions from the model. This is very powerful. It automates the whole process. Now, what I'm going to show you, we're going to switch to the demo part. And this is what you're used to, the standard data Unity catalog, Databricks Unity catalog. In the schema, Data Mart Hub, in the table loan data, what you will see is details of all the columns and the metadata on those columns. What if you could now see table level data trustability information? What if you could know that the data trust score for this table was 87 out of 100? And what if you know that there was no change in profile compared to the past run, so the data is reliable, but still the data trust score is low? And you could get detailed information on standardized data validation checks, like are the date columns, all the different date columns you have in your table, are they consistent? Are there too many nulls, too few nulls? Is the distribution of data looking okay? Are there any anomalous values in the different columns, and so on? What if you could also not just get what the columns are and the metadata are, but also a column level data trustability check for a particular column? You know, are there too many nulls, too few nulls? There seem to be more nulls here, and so on and so forth. So a table level data trustability information and a column level data trustability information, all of them calculated autonomously and fed directly into your Unity catalog. And we're going to switch to a demo to show you all of this. And now the beauty is the way DataBuck is designed is all the trust information can be accessed programmatically to control your data pipelines. So when Subramaniam and his team would design a data pipeline, they would simply be able to access all the information ahead of time from DataBuck and control whether a circuit breaker should let the pipeline flow or it should stop. Now, with that, I'm going to switch to the demo part of it. And my request to people on the webinar, please enter your questions in the Q&A box. Our moderator and our CTO, Angshuman Datta, will read those questions. And at the end of this, we'll have about 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A. He will give us some of those answers, the questions. Okay, now switching on. This is the data catalog that you're used to. In the catalog space, you'll see all the different schemas and all the different tables within those schemas. You click on any table, and this is what you're going to see. This is what Databricks gives you right now. Powerful, useful, but not sufficient. Now I'm going to pick another table called loan data, and you're going to see the magic that DataBuck can do to a Unity catalog. Now, what DataBuck has done is given you a lot more information at the table level. Here is the data trust score and so on. It also gives you information for the different column, what the data trustability is for those columns and where the issues could be. For example, the passport expiry date here seems to have about a few nulls, way more than what we would like to see. And now this combined with the power of Unity Catalog, we go to lineage. Let's look at the lineage graph. This table populates the data in few other tables downstream. building this out furthermore, you'll be able to see more downstream dependencies on this table. So when you see an error here, when you see that the data trust score is low, you will know what are the downstream tables that are impacted. That is very powerful. So you have the ability to run this, run DataBuck upstream and know the impact on all the downstream tables. Now, all the information that you see here in the columns are populated directly from DataBuck. User does not have to do anything. So I'm going to now switch to DataBuck to see how DataBuck calculates and computes these data trust scores at the table and the column level and how it fills it back in. So this is the UI for DataBuck. As soon as you log in, you will see all the tables that are registered with Databricks, how many of those tables are monitored, and how many are not monitored or unvalidated. This is your dark data. And of the tables that you're monitored, how many are your high trust tables, how many are your low trust tables, and so on. And it shows you at a high level, what is the trust score at an enterprise level? Is my house on fire? Am I comfortable using the data? And all this information is programmatically fed into the Unity catalog. Now, put the hat on of a data steward or an expert user who wants to see all of this information directly in the Unity catalog. I'll show you how DataBuck would do it automatically, but I'm going to show it manually to see how it works under the hood. Now, let's go to tables on the left, and you would see within DataBuck all the different data sources. You might have the Delta Lake, and you will have multiple other sources that are registered. And DataBuck picks up those, and it gives you for each of these tables who registered it and whether a validation was done. And let's say you are looking to validate a table or a few tables that have not been validated. Add table to validate, click data source. DataBuck supports multiple data sources. Databricks Delta Lake, there is one schema, and this is something very powerful. Now, this schema has a few tables and files in it. You could pick all the tables and files within that schema to be validated, or you could pick and choose one table. Now, the power of DataBuck is the ability to validate an entire schema without having to go one by one. You give it a nickname, and you could give more descriptions as needed. Now, this is something very powerful, worth remembering. Even if you don't remember anything from this webinar, I hope you take away this. DataBuck gives you the ability to get data trust score for hundreds and thousands of tables and files in a scalable manner with literally no information provided about the table. What have I not told DataBuck about that entire schema? I have not told DataBuck whether it is financial data, it is operational data, whether it is sales data, or any kind of data. All I've told DataBuck is, here is a table that is registered with Databricks, or here is an entire schema registered with Databricks. This has 16 tables in it. Just go validate that. This will get queued, this will get validated, and we will get notified, alerted when the table gets, when all those tables get executed. We're not going to wait. It's going to take, and it's going to start fingerprinting and validating the entire schema. We're going to quickly jump in and take a look at the results. We go back to the home screen, and what we're going to see again is this is the screen that we started with. Go down to the insights on the left, and we will see there are multiple capabilities of DataBuck: observability, trustability, quality, matching, and profiling, and so on. We pick the quality. Now, DataBuck has different workspaces, and all these workspaces are listed in the top. And for any workspace, which could have a few dozen or hundreds of files or tables, DataBuck tracks the data trust score, DTS, for that entire workspace. It also tracks multiple other information. If the tables have been classified as customer table or product table or a transaction table, it'll give you the data trust score for each of those different kinds of groups of tables. We now click on the table here. We'll see within this workspace the different types, the different tables, and these could be actual physical tables or these could be views that are listed, and what the data trust score is for each of this. What I just showed you a couple of minutes back was how easy it was to validate the data, each of these tables to get these data trust scores. Now I'm going to double click on one of this, and we're going to deep dive to see what is the information that DataBuck collects, and it is populating it back into the Unity catalog. There's a lot of information that's available here. We're not going to go into each of these details. The software automatically profiles the data. You have profile information and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, down to the table level, the software tracks the data trust score of an individual table over time. This is at a value of 92. And as you scroll down, you'll see some very powerful information, very relevant to all data users. For the different dimensions of data quality, these are the standardized dimensions of data quality. The software has looked at the table and it's auto-recommending the critical data elements for each of those checks. So for example, in the uniqueness or the duplicate, the software has auto-recommended the transaction ID be used to check for duplicates. You as the user are in the driver's seat. You can always override that and edit to what the software is recommending. It is not written in stone. You could always do that. Now, for different data quality dimensions, the software recommends the critical data elements. And it also creates thresholds of checks, which we will see next in a minute or two. And based on that, it flags the number of defects in these for each of these data dimensions. And these defects are directly translated into a data trust score. There's no magic in this conversion. Higher the number of defects, lower is the data trust score. Data trust scores goes from 0 to 100. We're going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to wrap up the demo in the next 5 minutes, but happy to give a more detailed demo to anybody in the audience. Reach out to us. Happy to connect with you folks. So we'll quickly do a deep dive and to see what more information and how did these numbers come? How did DataBuck flag so many defects? Let's go down to the null and completeness check. So clicking on that, what the software has done is it has looked at all the critical data elements and it does 4 magical things. Excuse me. So for all these different technical data validation checks, like null check, length checks, regex checks, and so on, for each of those, the software does 4 magical things. It recommends a critical data element. And in this case, for the passport amount, I clicked on it to see the graphical behavior of that column. The software also shows you the historical performance. And based on the historical performance of the nulls, it is recommending a null threshold. That is magic number 2. Recommends the critical data element, recommends the threshold. Magic number 3, if you're unhappy with the threshold, you can teach the software what should be an acceptable threshold. But as a starting point, you don't have to do it. If you're validating thousands of tables in your Unity catalog, just let the software run. You will be very close to what your actual desired thresholds will be. Of course, over time, you can tweak it. Then magic number 3, if you want to not track or track any of the columns, you could activate and deactivate any of those right from here. So the same magic you will see in all other checks. In regex pattern check, for example, the software automatically recommends what are the columns you should do for the regex pattern check. It also automatically discovers what those regex patterns are. And if it sees new patterns, it lets you know that there are some new patterns here. If it's a loan class and you could accept it or reject it, you could teach. So again, you see the same 4 magical things. Auto recommends the critical data elements, auto recommends what the rule should be, what the threshold should be, and you can teach the software. And similarly for duplicates, the software auto recommends what your primary key should be. And it can be a composite primary key. It will auto recommend what the composite key should be. And it'll also tell you if there are errors, what the root cause of those errors are. What is the subsegment within your data where those errors are happening? And that is very powerful in a root cause analysis. And date consistency. Most tables, nearly every table, has a lot of date-related information. And we did not tell the software anything about the data, anything about dates. The software automatically recognizes columns which have dates. And then it automatically also figures out what the relationship between the different date columns are. It discovers what the relationships are. And if those relationships are violated, it points out errors. In this case, of the 3,000 plus records, there were a dozen plus records that had errors. And from the essential results, if you go to advanced results, you will see more advanced data validation checks being performed here. Like, are the number of record counts within my data set okay? Not just at overall table level, but at a microsegment level. The software will also look for anomalous values. It auto-recommends the column for which you should check anomalous value. You can, of course, add more columns that you would like to check anomalous values for, or you could subtract what you don't want to do. The software also points out when there are issues, what is a microsegment of data within which this record had anomalous value. You could download and you can see what the anomalous values are. In distribution, software looks at the entire distribution microsegment of data and it looks for distribution. And if that has been enabled, you'll be able to see those values as well. So I'm not going to cover all of this. Again, very happy to give a detailed demo. Due to the lack of time, I want to quickly go back and open up the session for more Q&A. Now, we just saw a demo of DataBuck. What DataBuck is able to do is able to integrate with any governance tool. It is completely open API. All information can be moved into any of your governance tool, like the Databricks Unity Catalog. It can connect with your pipelines. You can create circuit breakers to start and stop your pipelines. You can also connect with your notification systems. You can be alerted when things go wrong. And a quick case study on one of our customers. So this was in the financial services space. They had about 520 tables. And DataBuck onboarded these 520 tables in just about 120 hours. Very fast. And it auto-discovered and auto-recommended about 20,000, 19,000 mathematical patterns in all these different 500 tables. And there were tables with low data trust scores, which would be of concern. So now if you have a circuit breaker, you can immediately trigger and stop the flow of corrupt data downstream. And these tables, some of them were pretty large. They were close to 1 billion rows, and they could be as small as 1,000 or 10,000 rows. DataBuck is very scalable. It can handle small, large tables. And the benefit was if this process had been done manually, to validate 520 tables, you would need close to 40,000 hours. You would need to have data stewards sit and check column by column what the acceptable behavior is, create rules, and then the IT team has to code it in. All of that was eliminated by DataBuck by automating the whole process. This is a huge productivity gain for any customer. So what we've seen so far, kind of wrapping things up, is Unity Catalog is very powerful. It enables security, governance, and auto helps with data sharing. But there are data trust challenges. Different groups and pipelines need some kind of a data trust metric to process. And scalability cannot be achieved using traditional means. What we have done with our software, DataBuck, is created an autonomous and standardized ability to get data trust metrics. It integrates with the Unity catalog and any other data catalog. When you have low trust in your data, you can be alerted and there is no data movement. Everything is a push down. So this will save you the amount of hardware that you need to validate your data and get data trust scores. So in summary, DataBuck will transform the way you manage data. You'll reduce errors by 70%, increase productivity by 2x, and all of this can be done at a very low cost. Whatever your existing cost is, you'll be able to cut down by 50% real fast. Now with that, thank you. And we will pause to take some questions. Datta, handing it over to you.
Yes. So Seth, there are a few questions came in. Couple of questions around the product. Can you add custom validation check as well? So can you talk about a little bit about custom validation check and portability of the custom validation checks?
Thank you so much. And I'm glad somebody asked that question because there was something I forgot to mention. DataBuck auto recommends essential rules that we saw, some advanced rules that we saw, and every table can also have custom checks input. So a user can create checks which are very specific to their business, very specific to their use case, and very specific to their table or file. And those checks can be created, and you could add, subtract any number of checks. There's no limitation, and DataBuck will be able to execute anything. So any check that you can create on, let's say, an Informatica or any traditional tool like a Talent or Ab Initio or anything else, you can create within DataBuck. You don't need to know any special language. If you can create a check in Excel spreadsheet, you can create it here. If you have SQL statements which you've already created and are using it, you can just import them into DataBuck. So, Datta, back to you.
Yeah. So second question is related to, can DataBuck alert or notify in real time to key stakeholders if certain data issues are identified in real time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So DataBuck will send you real-time alerts, and you could set up alerts right from here. You could subscribe to alerts. You could say if table X sees the data trust score falls below 80, alert to this email address. Or you could send alerts to a group of people, or you could even go down to a minute level. Let's say you're a credit card processing company and you absolutely do not want a duplicate transaction to go through. So the customer's credit card statement does not have two exact transactions at the same time on the same day. You might be hypersensitive to duplicates. So you could go down and say, if my duplicate check, let's say the uniqueness, there are 19 duplicates in this particular table. If this has a single duplicate, stop the pipeline, if that is that critical to you. So you could do it at a table level check, column level, or even data quality dimension level, and the alerts can be sent instantaneously in real time.
Okay. Next question is related to, are there specific prerequisites needed to ensure smooth interoperability between DataBuck and Databricks?
Okay, so let me, I'm going to have Subramaniam take the second part of the question. Let me answer the first part. DataBuck is completely open API, and everything can be programmatically controlled from within Databricks. So it is got very good connectivity. And maybe Subbu, if you could comment on the requirements.
So Seth, let me answer that question. So there is no special prerequisite. DataBuck is not a SaaS solution. It needs to reside within the customer's firewall, your AWS or Azure, and it connects to Databricks using policy ID, and same is with the Databricks Unity Catalog. And Shubhu, anything additional that you want to add before I go to the next question?
I think you're right. I think we use the standard methods to connect into the lake house, right? So, and this is worth a deeper discussion. So I won't take too much time here.
And the other question is that how does DataBuck ensure consistent performance in validating data as the volume grows? So again, answer to that is DataBuck does push down, and it uses Databricks compute capability. So it doesn't require a separate compute capability. So as your data volume grows, DataBuck will be leveraging your underlying Databricks compute capability to validate the data and provide you real-time notification about your data issues. The last question, what is the pricing model? Is there an annual subscription cost for approximately 1K table set? I would let you handle that.
Yeah.
I think, what is the pricing model? Is it per table, per enterprise, high level? They want to know.
Sure. Yeah. So the license is not per table. It can be for a group or it can be for the enterprise, depending on how big your organization is and how many tables you're trying to validate. We want to make it so that there is no limitation on the volume of data that you can process. And it's an annual subscription fee. And happy to get into a deeper discussion on a one-on-one call as well. And Data, back to you.
Yeah, I don't
do you have
see
one last question for Subramaniam? I realize we are out of time.
no more question, Seth.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I think let's wrap the call up, and happy to both Subramaniam and I are happy to take individual calls. You have our contact address, and we will send a recording of this demo with each of our contact addresses to people who have registered for this. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye. Thank you, Subbu. Thank you.
Bye, folks.